Hello, everyone. Welcome to our latest edition of the Cleveland Sports Show. I am your host, Arias Sethna. Thank you so much for spending some time of your day to listen to the Cleveland Sports Show. I have Logan Purcell, who will be joining us in a little bit. Today, we're going to remember the wonderful career of Cleveland sports legend Joe Tait, who sadly passed away this week. We'll also get into Premier League action. We'll discuss the Cavs and their return from the All-Star break. Speaking of the All-Star break, Logan and I are going to discuss our review of it, how it went down, Team LeBron versus Team Durant. We'll also get into more of the Indians spring training and talk about some possible news surrounding NFL free agency, as free agency will open in the NFL this upcoming Wednesday. It's all coming up, so stay tuned for the Cleveland Sports Show. First, let's get you started with our intro. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Darius Sethna of NordoniaHills.news, and the Cleveland Sports Show starts right now. Hello everyone, welcome to our latest edition of the Cleveland Sports Show. I am your host, Darius Sethna. Thank you so much for spending your time with me for this next 45 minutes or so. We're going to talk about the Cavs All-Star break, Cleveland Indians back in spring training, NFL free agency updates, but first, I would like to spend a little bit of our beginning of the show to talk about Joe Tait, who sadly passed away this week. Joe Tait, who was the Cavs broadcaster starting in 1970 all the way to their 2010-2011 season. Now, Joe Tait was born on May 15th, 1937 in Evanston, Illinois. And now, his early life, he actually spent some time at Ohio University. From 1966 to 1968, he was the official voice of the Ohio Bobcats and served as the sports director for WOUB, which is the local radio station down there in the Athens area. And I know we all think of Joe Tait as a renowned broadcaster for the Cavs, which he certainly was, but he was also the radio announcer for the Cleveland Indians from 1973 to 1979. And on March 26, 2008, Joe Tait announced his 3,000th game for the Cavs. As I mentioned, it was on March 26, 2008, in a game against the New Orleans Pelicans. Joe Tait's final broadcast for the Cleveland Cavaliers was on April 13th, 2011, and he walked out as a winner as the Cavs won that game. That was a home game against the Washington Wizards. They won that game 100-93. Now, some additional awards that Joe Tait has won in his illustrious career as a sports broadcaster here in the Northeast Ohio area. He actually won the Cleveland Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame. He was an inductee. That was the year 1997. And also, he's in the Broadcasters Hall of Fame in 2 states. That's right. In both Ohio as well as Indiana, he's in the Broadcasters Hall of Fame. And in 2010, he won the Kurt Gowdy Media Award. This is an award that's given by the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame to the best writers and sportscasters out there all across the United States. And if you ever happen to go to a Cavs game or any event at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, you'll actually see a Voice of the Cavaliers banner for Joe Tait, who spent 39 seasons as the broadcaster of the Cleveland Cavaliers. So you'll see his banner right next to all the retired jerseys of the Cavs. You'll see Mr. Tait's banner right there. As I mentioned, Joe Tait's first year with the Cavs was in 1970. That was the team's inception year as well. He then spent his remaining 39 seasons with the Cavs, his final season in 2010-2011. I actually, Will Buffsey, some of you Nordonia Hills.news fans may know him if you were if you watched our broadcast of Nordonia Knights basketball. Will Bussey actually about a week ago gave me a little souvenir as a present for my 100th episode of a Joe Tait collectible microphone. It's kind of like a bobblehead, but not a bobblehead. Just a small, nice souvenir that I'm going to take to college with me. What a fantastic memory we will have of Joe Tait. Terrific sports broadcaster here in Cleveland, Ohio. We certainly lost a legend, but this was a legend who certainly brought so much passion to the table, and we will never forget the amazing, illustrious career of Joe Tait, inspiring young broadcasters like myself to keep pushing for more to come. Now, let's get on to our sports fact of the day, ladies and gentlemen. And today we actually have a birthday to celebrate. That's right. Since we just talked about a lot of Cavs basketball and Joe Tait and their amazing career, we'll stick to basketball for today's sports fact of the day. Now, on this day, 1969, Knicks and Hornets fans, Larry Johnson's birthday is today. So Larry Johnson, NBA forward who played for both the Charlotte Hornets and New York Knicks, is celebrating a birthday today. He's 52 years old. Now, Johnson was the first pick in the 1991 NBA draft. He would play with the Charlotte Hornets until 1996. His highest points per game average actually came in his second year in the NBA, where he averaged 22 points a game. Now, in 1996, Johnson would move to New York and play for the Knicks. He would play there for a total of 5 seasons, where he would average around 13 to 15 points per game. He actually helped take the Knicks to the 1999 NBA Finals, and some of you Knicks fans probably remember that amazing 4-point play he had in the 1999 playoffs. That was a while ago. That was against the Indiana Pacers. But that's our sports fact of the day. Special happy birthday to Larry Johnson, NBA legend, certainly a legend in Charlotte and New York. So that is an awesome sports fact of the day for you, ladies and gentlemen. You know what's also awesome? The Premier League. So let's get into what's going on in the Premier League right now. So we've had a slate of games going on. This past Friday, match day 28 of 38 began. We had Newcastle and Aston Villa tying each other 1-1. Leeds United and Chelsea also tied yesterday, 0-0 scoreline there. Yesterday, Crystal Palace defeated West Brom by a final score of 1-0. Burnley defeated Everton 2-1. Manchester City defeated Fulham yesterday. The final score was 3-0. Brighton defeats Southampton by a final score of 2-1. Leicester City rout Sheffield United. Final score of that one, 5-0. And today we have more games in the Premier League. Arsenal will be going up against Tottenham in about a half hour, starting from now. Manchester United going up against West Ham today at 3:15 p.m. Wolves taking on Liverpool tomorrow on Monday, March 15th. Can't believe it's already mid-March. March 15th at 4 p.m. Overall standings in the Premier League. Manchester City are in first place with 71 points. It looks like they're most likely going to be winning the Premier League this year. 22 wins, 5 draws, 3 losses for Manchester City. Leicester City come in with a record of 17 wins, 5 draws, and 7 losses. Manchester United, however, has slipped in the standings. They were the 2 seed a while ago. Now they are the 3 seed. Leicester has surpassed them, but Manchester United still in a good spot. They have 15 wins, 9 draws, and 4 losses for a combined total of 54 points. Now Chelsea comes in at 4th place. They have 29 matches played so far, 14 wins, 9 draws, 6 losses on the season for Chelsea with 51 points. And only 3 points behind them with 48 points, West Ham with 14 wins, 6 draws, 7 losses on the season. That rounds out your top 5 for the Premier League so far this week. Overall goal scorers, top goal scorers to be more specific for you in the Premier League. Mohamed Salah, the Liverpool striker, still on top, but not by a wide margin. Mohamed Salah with 17 goals on the season so far. Liverpool striker, however, is only 1 goal which he only has one goal that helps him get to first place. Bruno Fernandes only one goal behind Mohamed Salah, the Manchester United player, with 16 goals on the on the season. Harry Kane also with 16 goals. So Kane and Fernandes both tied for second with 16 goals. Dominic Calvert-Lewin comes in at third place with 14 goals on the season so far. And then Patrick Bamford and Son Heung-min both come in at fourth place, each of those players with 13 goals on the season. Harry Kane still leads the league in assists with 13 assists on the season thus far. Kevin De Bruyne of Manchester City with 11 assists on the season for second place. And then Bruno Fernandes and Jack Grealish tie for third place, each of those players with 10 assists on the season. Overall, as I mentioned, upcoming matches, ladies and gentlemen, we have Arsenal taking on Tottenham Hotspur today at 12:30 p.m. Manchester United will be going up against West Ham. That'll be today at 3:15 p.m. And then tomorrow at 4 p.m., Monday, March 15th, we'll have the Wolves going up against Liverpool. Match day 29 of 38 in the Premier League will be beginning this Friday, March 19th. We'll have Fulham going up against Leeds United and Brighton taking on Newcastle. But that concludes our news for the Premier League Soccer League in England. Let's take a trip across the Atlantic Ocean back into the United States and be more specific. Let's go to New Orleans and talk about some Cleveland Cavaliers basketball because that's where their most recent game was. And joining me is Logan Purcell, Nordonia freshman. So glad to have you back on the show because we have a lot to discuss this week. Let's get started with the Cavs, Logan. And they returned from their All-Star break in New Orleans. They played at the Smoothing King Center against Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, and company. And I think if you ask most NBA fans, Logan, most of them would pick the New Orleans Pelicans to win this game. They just have the more talented group. You have Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart. These are all guys who I just think are overall more talented than the Cavs. But I thought the Cavs, especially heading into the All-Star break, had some momentum, even after that tough loss to the Pacers, their game before the All-Star break, but that was not the case for Cleveland. Even though Kevin Love returned for only his third full game this season, it was one of the worst return games I've ever seen a player have. Kevin Love, 10 minutes, only had 4 points and a rebound. I don't know if this is maybe just getting him back into game shape because he's been off for the last few months, but it was just a horrible performance by the Cavs starting in the second quarter. That first quarter, Logan, was a competitive one. Cavs were only down by 5, 34-29. But after that, Brandon Ingram just put on a show. 28 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists, all in just 25 minutes. Zion Williamson barely had to play, 23 points, only in 18 minutes to go along with 6 rebounds. Logan, overall, this was just a very poor performance by the Cavs. Even though they only had 6 turnovers, they got walloped in the paint. New Orleans outscored the Cavs in the paint 66-40. And even though this was the return game for Kevin Love, there's still a lot of question marks surrounding the consistency of this team. So I'll hand it over to you, Logan. What were your overall thoughts on, this game? Do you take away more from the Cavs getting walloped? They were down by almost 50 at one point. Or do you see this as, a good sign for the Pelicans?
Well, from the Cavs' point of view, unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch the game. But let me tell you, I checked my phone because I knew they were playing, and I saw the score at one point was 62-102.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there thinking, and we were talking about this team being the 7 or 8 seed, and
right.
They're losing by 40. It's just unbelievable. And the other team stat that I don't believe you mentioned was the fact that the Pelicans more than doubled the amount of rebounds the Cavs had total.
Yeah.
That is just another
33,
70 rebounds for the Pelicans compared to the Cavs 33.
Right. And 19 offensive rebounds, too, for the Pelicans.
They got absolutely killed on the board. And if you ask me, when you have the kind of size the Cavs have, it's not even about not having size or physicality. It's about effort.
Yeah.
To me, it's just they didn't have any heart.
To me, I was just very disappointed with Okoro's performance overall. I just saw they just were not giving him the ball at all, and 2 points in 29 minutes, and he's starting in these games, so that concerns me a little bit too. But yeah, go ahead, Logan.
Yeah, and you mentioned him not getting the ball, but to me, it's not even that. The dude shot 1 for 8.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say, oh, this guy doesn't shoot the ball a lot. Well, I don't want somebody that's shooting 1 for 8 to shoot the ball a lot either. I wouldn't be giving somebody that can't shoot the ball. That just doesn't make any sense. So to me, I've never been sold on Okoro. I think it was a stupid decision personally, and I know it's only his first year, but I mean, come on. As a number, 7 or 8, 6 or 7 pick?
Five.
It's like the number 5 pick.
Yeah.
Number 5 pick, you're shooting 1 for 8 on a nightly basis. It's like, I don't know. From the Cavs' point of view, it's at this point tank, honestly. They should be having a fire sale before the trade deadline, and I know that sounds a little bit excessive, but let me tell you, they need to do something, because it's bad. They need to do something. And
Cavs also, they actually picked up Quinn Cook, who's on a 10-day contract. Let's talk a little bit about that, Logan, because I feel like Quinn Cook brings a lot more to the table than I think we do. I think he can be a reliable backup point guard. Last night, 17 minutes, 13 points. Quinn Cook to me just seems like a steady point guard who can score when you need him to. He's been around championship teams for a majority of his career. He was with the Warriors for a couple of years. Then he was with he won the championship with the Lakers last year. So this is a guy who's been around and surrounded by veteran experience. What do you think Quinn Cook, Logan, can bring to this Cavs team moving forward?
Well, I think one of the major things that we talked about recently, especially with the Cavs, is their inability to shoot. They don't have a lot of guys that spread the floor. I mean, Colin Sexton's a hot and cold shooter. Darius Garland's a hot and cold shooter. They don't really have any, wings, to say the least. I mean, Okoro is your best excuse, to be completely honest. And again, Cedi Osman had a great start to the year, and that was about it.
Right.
You don't hear his name come up at all. But I think he's going to add some really good shooting. And it'll give the Cavs a little bit of an opportunity to spread the floor out for guys. They're better finishers, Colin Sexton, and even some post work from, the 22-year-old star in the of Jared Allen.
Right.
So I think that he'll add some good depth from the arc and give him some shooting.
You spoke about Jared Allen. Allen last night against the Pelicans really struggled. 33 minutes of play, only 5.7 rebounds and 2 assists. We'll see what he'll be able to do tonight as the Cavs play the Atlanta Hawks. That'll be in Atlanta at the State Farm Arena. Cavs are going to be going up against some quality teams here this week, Logan. Hawks, who have been on a winning streak. They'll be playing the Miami Heat, the defending Eastern Conference champions, on Tuesday. Celtics will be in town on Wednesday for the Cavs' first home game since the All-Star break, and then they'll be taking on the Spurs, who, obviously are going to compete every night. So, Logan, in this case, what do you want to see from the Cavs these next few games? Because after this game against the New Orleans Pelicans, I am very, very nervous of what lies ahead for them, especially against these quality opponents. What do you want to see from Cleveland if they want to win some of these games going forward?
Well, to win some of these games, they got to show effort and stop giving Isaac Okoro the ball. I mean, I totally understand. Number 5 overall pick, you've got a lot of young pieces, but I mean, at the end of the day, these young pieces just may not be the pieces. I mean, I mentioned Cedi Osman a couple minutes ago. Dude shot 1 for 9.
Yeah.
It's like, combined.
I mean, he's really struggled this year.
Okoro and Cedi Osman, who are your 2 best forwards from on paper standpoint, combined for 2 for 17. Absolutely ridiculous.
What are your thoughts on Kevin Love back? I know he barely played in the game, only 10 minutes, 4 points. But we've both been saying this. Trade needs to happen. How do you think he performed last night? How did he look to you?
He looked lethargic and completely out of shape.
Yeah.
I think at this point the Cavs are honestly just playing him to show teams that may be interested in trading for him that he can still run up and down the floor.
Right.
Just to give him, he's not going to tear his ACL first week, and you're not going to be paying a dude $28 million to sit on the bench like we did, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think they're just playing him just to be, like I said, show teams, hey, he's alive. He still can play basketball, but to be honest, that's about the length of it because he's not adding any value. he's not going to add any value. He's not going to help him win games.
Right.
It's just trade value at this point.
I was saying, at the beginning of the year, Logan, trade Love, get Marcus Morris from the Clippers. But it was a little more complex than that, but that was basically the primary goal. Who do you want the Cavs to make a trade with, and who should they get in return for Kevin Love if there is a trade that does go down?
So, a team that I've been, talking a lot about recently is the Boston Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
They're a team that is in very, very healthy need of some depth. And I'm not saying that the Celtics could, heavily benefit from a guy like Love, but one of the biggest things that they struggle with is the post. And, if Kevin Love, if nothing else, is a rebounder, as I talked about when we talked about the Cavs with the rebounding aspect last night, they can't rebound. Not for anything, but Love can. Love can shoot, he can rebound. It's all effort to me. So, and the Celtics are one of those teams that has a lot of picks. Danny Ainge has set up that team in a way where they have young stars, a couple of solid veterans, and a boatload of draft picks.
Right.
So, to me, I think the Cavs could make a move, potentially, Kevin Love to Boston for a couple of maybe a first rounder.
Yeah.
And a guy like Romeo Langford or somebody of that extent, because Romeo Langford is a very solid wing defender. I mean, Romeo Langford to me is proven better than Isaac Okoro.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. And,
and
I'll take Romeo Langford to start over Okoro any day of the week.
Right.
So I would love, if you could get a first-round pick out of Boston and Romeo Langford, I think the Cavs, that's an A-plus trade for me.
Yeah, sorry about those couple of cutouts there, ladies and gentlemen. We're back on the line. Heard pretty much everything you said, Logan, no worries. I was going to ask you this. That's a good idea you mentioned Kevin Love to Boston. I would think he would have to come off the bench, wouldn't you? Because I don't think it's going to work if Love goes to the Celtics. It's not. I don't think him, Jaylen Brown, and Tatum can be in the court at the same time. That just doesn't sound good in my head as I'm thinking about it right now. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, see, and that's exactly. I was hoping you'd say something like that because that's another beautiful reason as to why the Celtics could heavily use a guy like Kevin Love. When it comes to bench scoring, the Celtics, I believe, are 27th in the NBA.
Yeah,
and
it's
only
bad.
30 points a game, which is just absurd for a team that, from top to bottom, is stacked. I mean,
are they stacked though? Are they stacked? I mean, because it's really just Tatum and Brown, before Kemba, and then Kemba. It's the big three. But other than that, I wouldn't say they're stacked. I mean, they have quality. They have some good role players, but I don't know about stacked.
Well, yeah. See, for me at least, when it comes to the bench, when I say a stacked bench, I mean, you want to talk about the Jazz, for instance?
Right,
I mean,
right.
You don't see that.
Yeah.
You don't see a dude off the bench get 17 a game, and then they have, a Mike Conley level player, not Will Barton, but you know what I mean. They've got all kinds of guys.
Yeah.
That's like another level of stacked. But I mean, I still consider Peyton Pritchard a guy who performed very well this year. You talk about a guy like Tristan Thompson or Daniel Tice coming off the bench.
Right.
I think that's a very valid option for, a center.
Right.
I think, Marcus Smart is coming off the bench.
Yeah, he's back now, too.
You're right. Stacked may not be the word, but from a paper, like, you look at that bench and match it up, I'll take the Celtics bench over almost every other bench in the NBA.
Yeah, and, and you've been saying this obviously the Celtics do have quality players, but their record hasn't shown it to me, Logan. Yeah, they did go on a little bit of a winning streak, but overall, their bench, has been kind of underperforming so far during the season, and, I think their record definitely should be better than what it is. But, Logan, the Cavs will be playing the Hawks tonight. Trae Young, was not an all-star this year, even though I probably thought he should have been. You have guys, like John Collins, Kevin Huerter. The Cavs actually beat the Hawks about last month. It was on a Lamar Stevens dunk in the final seconds. What do you want to see from, we were talking about effort, obviously. What else do you want to see from the Cavs specifically against the Hawks tonight, as this is going to be a big matchup for the backcourts?
I want to see a little bit more consistency from the shooting as a team. Like I said before, you're going to have a lot of depth now, I believe, with Quinn Cook coming into the scene. I'm interested to see how the guys in the post react.
Yeah.
Talked about Jared Allen, last night against the Pelicans and how he didn't play very well, but it wasn't like he played like Isaac Okoro and shot, 10 shots and hit one. He only took 6 shots, and he hit 2 of them. So from my point of view, that's more of an issue of just take shots.
Yeah.
If it doesn't drop, it doesn't drop, but you got to take shots. You're not going to see, like I said before, I said this a couple of weeks ago, you're not going to see a guy like Kevin Durant come out, shoot 1 for 10, and then stop shooting the ball at halftime. That's not how that works.
Right.
He'll keep shooting, but, he'll end the game, 11 for 21 or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, to me, he's just got to continue to shoot the ball, and I'm looking to see, like I said, more consistency from shooters. If Quinco can keep up the scoring and the ability to shoot, because he also did shoot 3 for 4 from deep. He was feeling himself a little bit even after getting released by the Lakers. But I think there's a lot of potential there, but I need to see some shooting out of him again.
Yeah, Cavs Hawks tonight at 7:30 p.m., ladies and gentlemen. Catch the game on Fox Sports Ohio. Upcoming schedule for the Cavs this week will be obviously that game against the Hawks tonight. Then the Cavs will head to Miami at American Airlines Arena for a matchup with the Heat. That'll be Tuesday at 8 p.m. Cavs will then return home for a 4-game homestand. It'll start Wednesday against the Celtics at 8 p.m. They'll play the Spurs on Friday. 7:30 p.m. is game time then. Logan, let's talk about other NBA standings real quick before we head into some All-Star talk. Right now, Brooklyn Nets, they always have the talk of the Eastern Conference because they have all the stars, essentially. But they are still second in the East, but they're only half a game behind the Philadelphia 76ers. The Nets, I was nervous about how this was going to play out with James Harden. I thought they should have stood pat with Karis LeVert and, that whole bench, that whole crew, with Jared Allen, obviously. But, they are showing me that they can win games with this kind of roster. And now, Logan, they've added Blake Griffin to the mix. How do you think Blake Griffin is going to help impact the Nets? Because, we knew that they were thin at the center position. After DeAndre Jordan, they didn't really have many great options. So how do you think Blake Griffin's going to help the Nets moving forward?
On paper, I think it'll look really good because he's going to be a 15-point kind of game, per game kind of guy. But from a personal, individual player impact, I hate to say it, but I don't think it's going to make much.
Yeah.
I had this conversation with a friend of mine a couple days ago, and I asked him the same exact question. The idea that he brought up was, at the end of the day, you've got 3 other superstars on that team, so you double team one of them, somebody's going to score the ball.
Right.
Somebody's going to be open.
Yeah.
You're talking about it either being Blake Griffin or DeAndre Jordan. So, he's going to be one of the guys that's going to be getting backdoor cuts wide open every single play when James Harden gets doubled or Kyrie gets doubled or Durant gets doubled kind of thing.
Right.
So, to me, he's going to be 13, 14 points a game, but he's not going to be, I hate, how everybody's talking about Lob City.
Yeah, it's not Lob City anymore, no.
This is not Clifford Blake Griffin.
Yeah.
He's shooting step backs and all this other garbage. He's taking like 6 threes a game, which is absurd.
Yeah, he's struggling to jump. I saw him with the Pistons a couple games. He's kind of struggling to just get elevation.
Yeah, like I said, I just think he'll be a 13, 14 kind of guy kind of game, but he'll be shooting like 7 for 8 because he takes layups.
Right.
It'll be back. You're not going to see him running isolation ball like you see Kyrie dropping 40 on the Celtics.
Yeah, no.
It's just not.
Right.
This isn't going to be with the Pistons.
Yeah.
It'll be him the back seat to Kyrie, Harden, and Durant.
Yeah, and that's what I expected, honestly. Like, I didn't expect Blake Griffin. I didn't expect this to be like a big 4 now. It's still a big 3 in Brooklyn. I think Griffin's going to help them at the center position for sure.
Exactly. Think of it, for anybody that doesn't fully understand, think of it kind of like the Heat back in, when LeBron went there. When Ray Allen joined the Heat, it wasn't a big 4.
Right.
It was Wade, Bosh, LeBron, and Ray Allen.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big 4, but Ray Allen was still an elite shooter at the time.
Yeah,
he
saved the Heat in Game 6. He had the biggest shot of that series.
Yeah, exactly. But that didn't make him part of the Big 4.
Right.
He's still an elite shooter, but it doesn't make him elite. So, to me, it's the same exact situation. You still got your big 3 core, Blake Griffin added.
It's definitely, yeah.
I don't think it's enough of a difference to really matter.
Right. And also, we talked about the Nets slogan. Some other big storylines going on in the NBA. Heat are 2 games over 500. Hornets are 6th in the East, Logan. Their record of 19-18. Jazz picked up from where they left off. The All-Star game, they're 28-9 right now. Suns 25-12. They're 2nd in the Eastern Conference. We have so many different storylines to depict, Logan, in both the East and the West. So I'm going to ask you now that we've had a week to kind of really grasp all the stories that have been going on this season. What's been the biggest story to you so far in the NBA? Who's been the most impressive team you've been watching so far?
From an impressive team standpoint, there's just so many teams.
Yeah.
You mentioned Utah. We talked about their bench earlier when we were talking about Boston. You talk about, you can make an argument from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Paper, it's the same exact team as last year. They didn't do that much, but they're the number 1 team in the East.
Coaching change, big coaching change.
Everybody was talking about LaMelo Ball, how, a lot of people didn't believe in him. I heard people making arguments, Jordan never makes the right decision. How is LaMelo the right one now? But he's played out of his freaking mind.
Right.
The past couple of weeks, and he is just on another level. But for me, believe it or not, I've got the Phoenix Suns.
Same. Yeah.
They have just taken the next step. I was talking with somebody about the playoffs, and the issue is there's literally 4 teams in each side. The Nets are the front runner in the East. There's only 3 or 4 teams that can really run the tables. It's going to be the Nets, the Celtics, the Bucks, and the Sixers.
Yeah.
Those are your teams that are going to run the table. I'm sorry, but Miami isn't going to run the table. They're a distant 5th to me.
Do you think that
they just don't have?
Do you think that bubble? I was just going to ask you real quick about this, Logan. Do you think that bubble performance by the Heat last year was a fluke?
I don't know if I would call it a fluke, but I just don't buy it. I'm not going to call it a fluke because it's not exactly fair.
Right.
You can't. Okay, well, you took the Celtics to 6 games and beat them in 6 games. It's a fluke. But you can't really say that because it's a 6-7 game series. You want to talk about NFL? Do I think Drew Brees throwing 3 interceptions in an NFC divisional game, is that a fluke? Yeah, it's a fluke. It's a single game.
Right.
Drew Brees. But basketball's a bit different. 7-game series, you got 7 opportunities to win games.
Right.
If you don't, I can't call it a fluke. I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year. I think people know how they are now. It's a physical team. I just don't think they have enough firepower. But I think, like I said, you've got those 4 teams that I mentioned. They're a distant 5th.
Yeah.
They'll take one of those 4 teams to 6 games.
Right.
They're not going to beat them in 7. It just won't happen.
Yeah.
Even then, you're the only reason that I mentioned even the Celtics in there is because, in my belief, you look at the teams, you run the 5-on-5 next to each other with the Nets and the Celtics. If you look at it, the Celtics have the best one-on-one matchups individually.
Yeah.
Tatum and Brown, 2 of the most underrated defenders in the NBA.
Right.
Tatum and Brown can match up Harden. Jason Tatum has guarded Kevin Durant efficiently, and Marcus Smart is one of the best defenders in the NBA as a whole.
Yeah, it's going to be a big help.
So, defensively, that's a really solid matchup. So, any of those 4 teams can run the tables. But when you talk about the West, anybody, Utah, Denver, any of the Los Angeles teams.
Right.
And then Phoenix.
But don't forget about Portland either. Portland's up there.
Portland is it. And again, I had this conversation with somebody. Portland, the only issue that I have with Portland, you look at every other team in the West, it's size, it's wings. Portland doesn't have a wing.
Right.
You can run your mouth about Melo all you want. He's 50 years old, but he's not a true wing. He's not going to run up with a LeBron or a Kawhi. All of those teams that I named have size. Donovan Mitchell might only be 6'3", 6'4", but he plays like a wing. Dude can jump out of the gym.
Yeah.
So Utah's got a wing. LA's got Kawhi. The Lakers have Braun and Anthony Davis. Denver has Jokic.
Yeah.
And they're deep as everything. Their 6th man is better than most teams. One of the 2nd or 3rd best guys. The team, Portland just doesn't really have a chance unless Dame Doll is dropping 45 a game.
And
I'm not ruling that out. And Damian Lillard is an elite scorer.
And CJ McCollum also has to come back, and he has to be healthy and ready to go. That backcourt has to, play out of their mind for them to have a chance, I think.
Yeah, CJ McCollum, in my eyes, you look at the numbers, he's underperformed in his entire career without the playoffs. So, if he doesn't figure that nonsense out, Portland's never going to have a chance to even make it to 7 games in a semifinal.
Yeah.
Much less the conference. So, it'll be fun to watch, though.
Yeah.
The Weston, it's 4 teams on either side. It's going to be one of 4 teams on both sides.
Right.
I mentioned 4 teams with the West, and I mentioned 4 teams with the East. It's going to be one of those teams.
Yeah. And I'm so excited to see, playoffs, Logan, are only, a little over 2 months away, so I'm so excited to see, the competitive games, what upsets might be pulled off, what new team might, make their presence felt in the NBA. Let's talk about a final section here of NBA news. We'll talk about the All-Star game for a couple minutes here. Team LeBron defeats Team Durant. Kevin Durant did not play in that game. Team LeBron defeats Team Durant 170-150, so not as competitive as last year's All-Star game. I think you could make a case that last year's All-Star game in Chicago was the best All-Star game ever put on. But in this past Sunday's All-Star game, Giannis Antetokounmpo walked away with the All-Star game MVP, 35 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists. Logan, this was, obviously no defense being played at all. And the only I think the NBA did a great job of handling All-Star Weekend this year. The only problem that they had was that Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid couldn't go down to Atlanta because of COVID issues, but they didn't even test positive. They were just surrounded by an individual who did test positive. But that was the only flaw of the All-Star Weekend. Everything else went really well. I did enjoy watching the game. It was not as entertaining as last year, though. But I will say, just the skill that was put on. You had dudes shooting half-court shots. Steph Curry was amazing in the three-point contest as well as in the game. So before we move on to our next topic, Logan, I just wanted to get your thoughts on this year's All-Star game. How do you think it went, even despite all these challenging concerns with COVID?
Well, my first thought on the entire weekend was the NBA did a tremendous job and a phenomenal job of handling it. Like you had mentioned, they did a great job of, like you said, 2 guys missed it. 2 guys were not able to perform.
Right.
But yeah, I think they did an absolutely amazing job. And you want to talk about Giannis? I don't care if you're shooting layups, floaters, or whatever it is, but 16 for 16 is pretty good. The defense or not.
Yeah.
And that's one of the other things that I was going to mention is you said no defense, but if you watch the game, there was a little bit of defense going on. There was a little bit of chippiness in there. They were messing around.
Not as much as last year, though.
Tough shots. There were tough shots going up there. I give a lot of credit to everybody who played. Like Steph Curry, like probably 5 or 6 of his threes were half-court shots.
Yeah.
And Damian Lillard calling game on his slow walk down the floor and just pulling up in the face of whoever that was, some 6'9" forward, I'm sure, calling game and tapping his wrist, because it's Dame time. But I think it was a very, very interesting and fun game to watch for everybody that got a chance to watch it.
Yeah, it was definitely something good to watch on a Sunday night. And Team LeBron defeat Team Durant this year 170-150. And next year's All-Star game, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be right here in Cleveland, Ohio at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Hopefully, we are back to normal by then in February of 2022. LeBron will make his return home to Cleveland as an All-Star. All the All-Stars will be in Cleveland in 2022, the All-Star game. It'll be the first time since Cleveland has hosted an All-Star game since 1997. So, for many smaller market cities, this is kind of like a once in every 25 years. And this is just going to be an awesome All-Star weekend next year. Let's hope that it's somewhat normal. Now, All-Star weekend, All-Star talk is over. NBA talk in general is over. Logan, we're going to talk about the Cleveland Indians for a little bit right now as they continue their spring training grind. Their latest game was yesterday against the San Francisco Giants. Giants defeat the Indians by a final score of 5-4. Indians got outscored 4-0 in the second inning, but then game got a little bit more competitive in the fifth inning. They outscored San Francisco 3-1, but it was just too little for the Indians. Lose by 1 inning. Game before Friday, this past Friday, the game before that, Los Angeles Dodgers smoked the Indians 9-2. Indians took a 2-0 lead after 3 innings. However, in the fifth inning is when the LA Dodgers started pouring it on. 2 runs in the fifth, 4 runs in the sixth, and 3 runs in the seventh inning, Logan. So Indians have struggled as of late. They have lost their last 4 games in spring training so far. So what are your thoughts on how the Indians have been performing so far in spring training? As I mentioned, they've just lost their last 4 games, but this is also time, to play all of your different kinds of players, see what works, see what doesn't work, so that when April comes, you have a good idea of what you're doing. So overall, Logan, what are your thoughts on how the Indians have been playing this week in spring training?
Well, I think there's a lot of different things you can point to, with the inconsistencies, but I think for me it's been pitching. You look up and down the board, you mentioned 9-2 against the Dodgers on the 12th.
Yeah.
And then you got, five runs given up, then 4 runs given up, and then, you have a couple good games, you have a clean pitching game, no runs given up, then you got 2 runs given up. It's so inconsistent to me, and they got to find that rhythm. And I know it's spring training, but just like preseason in the NBA and the NFL, you got to find a rhythm. And
right.
We have yet to find that, and we're quite a few games into the year already. I'm just kind of not in my head, like, when are you going to find it? You
right.
just think you see something for a couple games, and then they'll give up 9 runs to the Dodgers.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of inconsistencies, even the bats. It's just, luckily they haven't had too many really bad games.
Yeah.
They've gotten the bats swinging all right, but like I said, they got to figure out these inconsistencies, but now's the best time to do it. But pitching's got to be top of the list right now. Yeah,
and the Indians will have quite a few more games left in their spring training. They have a day off today. Tomorrow, they'll be back in action for spring training. They'll be going up against the Oakland Athletics tomorrow at 4:05 p.m. They'll then be taking on this week the Angels, the Reds, the Cubs, and the Colorado Rockies. So Indians, as I mentioned, with so many games left, April 1st is the first day of the MLB season, Logan. The Indians will be facing off against the Detroit Tigers at 1:10 p.m. on April 1st. But, as I mentioned, so many games left for the Indians. It's going to be critical for them to find that consistency, especially if they want to be competitive now with Francisco Lindor out of the picture. Now, let's go into some NFL free agency talk, Logan. Free agency in the NFL is going to begin at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on March 17th. Team spending is limited by the annual salary cap. This year, it's about $183 million for 2021. Let's talk about the Browns first, Logan. In particular with the Cleveland Browns, what free agent signings do you think they need to capitalize on starting Wednesday when free agency opens?
Well, I was listening to another podcast, local guy, I don't remember exactly who it was, but he was talking about the Browns, and he said, okay, this is what the Browns need in order from most to not so much.
Yeah.
Corners, safeties, linebacker depth, and a nice offensive lineman would be nice because more than likely Olivier Vernon's gone.
Yeah.
One of the guys that I've heard is floating around, and it's kind of just, we're just like looking at our watches, waiting for the time to come, is Von Miller. And, I talked about J.J. Watt.
Yeah.
How maybe the Browns, don't exactly need him. He shouldn't be top of the list. Von Miller, on the other hand, is another story. Von Miller is a guy, he might be aged, but he can play linebacker. He'll give you that linebacker depth. He can play man-to-man on a really solid tight end, Travis Kelce and guys like that, who, if you remember correctly, Travis Kelce did kind of light up the Browns in the AFC divisional game last year.
Yeah, how could I forget?
Exactly. And he could also, I'm just saying, you double Myles Garrett, guess who's coming on the opposite side?
Right.
Von Miller.
Right.
So to me, I think if for the right contract, I think that's a solid deal. The only issue that you run into is he's going to probably be wanting $15, $16 million a year.
Yeah.
For 2-3 years. And to me, you just can't do that. I mean, I was talking to a buddy about this, and I was like, they have cap room now, but they've got a lot of young pieces. Cap room soaks up quick. Denzel Ward's going to be expecting a $13 million fifth-year option next year.
Right.
Baker Mayfield's going to be wanting a near $20 million per year contract next year.
Yeah.
I mean, and if the Browns don't get that Baker deal done now and he plays, for instance, out of his mind, you might be looking at a guy that wants $35 million a year that you don't have.
Right.
Because you've got a guy like Von Miller on the books.
Right.
So unless they're doing, a 1 year, I would say $12 million is your safe bet. If you can get him for 1 year, $12 million, I'm writing paper. I'll get paper done now. But if we're talking over, you got to think about this from the standpoint of cap room only lasts if you don't have guys to resign.
Right.
They've got a lot of young guys on some short contracts. They need to make a decision, but they need to be smart about it.
And let's that was a great analysis on the Browns, Logan. It's going to be interesting to see what they do when free agency starts. Let's look at, I wanted to talk about this. Dak Prescott and the Cowboys have finally have come to terms on a deal. Dak Prescott has signed a 4-year, $160 million contract with the Dallas Cowboys. Given that the Cowboys have, pretty much been struggling these last few years, do you think, Logan, this was a smart move for Prescott to make?
Well, for Dak Prescott, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking to sign for money and make money and be the number one guy, you more than did your share.
Yep.
You more than did your job. If you're looking to win, then no.
Yeah.
You probably did the worst possible thing you could have done. And from the Jerry Jones Dallas Cowboy point of view, he kind of screwed himself. Not kind of. He absolutely royally screwed himself. Because if you think about it, you've got a big three offensively over there in Dallas, okay? You've got Amari Cooper.
Right.
Ezekiel Elliott, and now a $40 million quarterback in Dak Prescott.
Yep.
I don't know about you, but Dak Prescott is not better than Russell Wilson. He's not better than Aaron Rodgers.
No.
He's not better than Tom Brady.
No.
And he's paid as a top 3 quarterback in the NFL right now.
He is your core though. Without him, you saw what they were without him last year. So to them, he's worth that much.
That's exactly the point. But the issue is, I believe the cap room now for each team is dropped 8% because of COVID. So I believe it's about $182 million.
Yep, 82.5. Yeah.
Right? Dak Prescott's $40 million. Zeke is about $15 million, and Amari Cooper's about $15 million. That's $70 million on 3 players.
Yeah.
Their depth is going to be absolute. And I'm sorry, don't get me wrong. I get they missed Dak. They missed out on Dak Prescott last year.
Right.
But I'm just saying, for $70 million, Dak Prescott's never won a playoff game in his career. Not once. He's never won a playoff game.
Yeah.
And yet they want to pay him $40 million a year above a guy who's won a Super Bowl, above a guy that's won 2. And I just don't understand the stupidity of Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys.
But do you think
makes 0 sense.
Do you think it's possible, they have that big 3 in Dallas. Is it possible that they can scoot by and win a playoff game? And, because anything can happen in one game. Logan, do you think it's possible that that the Cowboys can pull a possible upset in the first round?
Well, of course it's possible. But, you look at it like this, right? So, if you're paying a quarterback $40 million a year, you're not paying him to go win one playoff game. You're paying him to go compete for a Super Bowl.
Right.
There's not a chance they're doing that. With the Bucs, who's getting everybody back? Don't even talk to me about Shaq Barrett. Brady dropping money like it's nothing. Mike Evans dropping money like it's nothing.
Yeah.
The Bucs are like, unless somebody gets hurt or Aaron Rodgers throws 60 touchdowns next year and throws 5 touchdowns against the Bucs in the playoffs, the Bucs are going to the Super Bowl. That's my opinion. They've already got my vote. The season ain't started yet. Free agency ain't even happened. The draft ain't even happened. I don't care. Bucs are going to the Super Bowl. But you don't pay a guy $40 million a year to go win a playoff game. When Patrick Mahomes signed that 10-year, $500 million contract, they didn't sign it for him to go win, 10 playoff games in the next 10 years. They signed it for him to win 5 Super Bowls in the next 10 years.
Right.
So when the Dallas Cowboys sign that paper, they're not signing saying, all right, Dak, you got to win a playoff game.
Yeah.
No, they're signing saying, Dak, we've given you Zeke Elliott, we've given you Amari Cooper, we've given you CeeDee Lamb, we've given you Michael Gallup, we've given you some of the best offensive linemen in the NFL. Go win a Super Bowl. Go win something.
Yeah.
I don't see it happening. I've never been a Dak Prescott guy. I think it was probably the stupidest decision for the Cowboys in the past 5 years.
And, yeah, I mean, it's going to, Cowboys are obviously going to have their core back. We'll see how they play this season. But, yes, Dak Prescott, that was really the big news in the NFL last week, that 4-year, $160 million contract for the Dallas Cowboys. And, well, Logan, that actually concludes our NFL talk that concludes our latest episode of the Cleveland Sports Show and all our topics to discuss this week. So I want to thank you so much for spending some time of your weekend this week to talk with me. Some great in-depth analysis from you, Logan. As always, really appreciate all of your contributions to this show. Can't wait for our next episode. Again, Logan, really appreciate it. Have a great week, and I'll see you for our next episode.
You will. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, Logan. And ladies and gentlemen, well, you just heard my phone beep, so I just got off the phone with Logan Purcell, which means that the Cleveland Sports Show, this episode of the Cleveland Sports Show, is over. Now, don't cry. Get that box of tissues. Wipe those tears off your face. I know you're so sad that the Cleveland Sports Show episode is over, but guess what? Wipe those tears off your face first. Now let me tell you about how you can access my past episodes of the Cleveland Sports Show if you want more of this podcast. If you are on NordoniaHills.news, just make sure that you go to the Contributors tab. My name is the second or third one down. You'll be able to see it. My name is Darius Sethna, and you will be able to access all of my episodes of the Cleveland Sports Show. Now, those episodes to the Cleveland Sports Show, some with Logan, the ones in the past are not with Logan. Logan joined us about a few months ago, but our more recent episodes have Logan with them, so if you want his breakdown of certain aspects of sports as well, make sure you check those out. You can also check out the Cleveland Sports Show on Spotify. Yes, Cleveland Sports Show is on the go. Wherever you are, you can take the Cleveland Sports Show with you. Just type in my name on Spotify, spelled DARAYUSSETHNA. And then you'll be able to listen to the Cleveland Sports Show on Spotify. So happy to announce that you can also find the Cleveland Sports Show on my Twitter account. My Twitter handle is @NordoniaSports, and my name, if you want to type in my name into Twitter, is spelled DARAYUSSETHNA, Darius Sethna, @NordoniaSports. I post all my work, all my episodes for the Cleveland Sports Show on there as well. You can also find the Cleveland Sports Show on the Nordonia Hills News YouTube page. So if you're on YouTube and you want to listen to the Cleveland Sports Show, just head on over to the Nordonia Hills News YouTube page, and all of my episodes for the Cleveland Sports Show will be on there as well. We're also planning on putting the Cleveland Sports Show on Facebook, on the NordoniaHills.news Facebook page. I know we have so many fans on Facebook, so many viewers, so we're hoping to get our the Facebook page loaded with some Cleveland Sports Show episodes for you. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes my latest edition of the Cleveland Sports Show. Thank you so much for joining me this week. Really appreciate your time in listening to Logan and I discuss sports. Special thanks again to Logan Purcell for all of his amazing work week in and week out. Ladies and gentlemen, until our next episode, this is Darius Sethna signing off. Thank you so much for joining me this week, and we'll see you next time for another episode of the Cleveland Sports Show. Take care, everyone.